Hey folks, it's me, your girl Griselda. How are y'all doing? I really want to talk about this J-Lo thing. I posted something about that and about her documentary, and I've just been watching the past several months, like probably a lot of you might, maybe not watching and paying close attention because we're all living our lives and who cares about J-Lo and pop culture and who has time for that. I like paying attention to those things because pop culture and mainstream issues and conversations are tethered, right, to deeper things. And I like to look at that because it reveals what's really going on sort of in the zeitgeist and this collective unconscious. And so when people say, oh, who cares about that? Especially people who say that they are occultists or are people who are living a symbolic life or paying attention to the esoteric life and so on. I mean, if you're not paying attention to pop culture and politics and the goings on in the world, then, and connecting that to the deeper realms, then what are you doing? And then we're just hiding in the deeper realms. We're not really looking at how they are expressed or made manifest here in this postmodern time that we are all living in. So I think that if you are a student of the esoteric, the occult, or what has been occulted, it's important to learn how to see symbolically into the mundane, into the profane, look for the sacred. That is how we practice our kung fu, our esoteric kung fu, to be able to see the symbolism occurring, the mythology occurring. Because then what that does is it makes it not personal, right? We start to see how we're all tethered to some mythos here. And that is why I wanted to write about, and why I did write about J-Lo in particular, what's happening with her and her documentary as a expression of the feminine mythos. The descent of Inanna is another way to look at it. And then the rise of the phoenix, which is also partly what her story is about. The feminine and the masculine are principles. They are the duality born out of primordial chaos. They are the first order born out of primordial chaos, is this duality, this polarity. And so we cannot ignore that. The alchemy comes with now the combination of those materials and those archetypes, which is the holy marriage or the unholy marriage, and so on. So, it's another conversation. So when I watch the documentary, I see the narcissism, but I want to look beyond that because there's something else there. And I'd like to pay attention to what that is. What is it really saying beyond the personality of J-Lo, beyond the things that I'm watching all over YouTube? And let me just say, I mentioned this in the post that I posted about J-Lo's documentary, about all of the people coming for her on social media. To be just very blunt, they're not the deepest personalities around. They're not really people who are trying to be intellectual. They're just gossiping about this stuff. They're not really trying to understand what is going on. And then one person writes about it, or one person makes a video on YouTube about it, and then it just blows up. And now this is the dominant narrative about what is happening with J-Lo. Or people like J-Lo, or women like J-Lo. And it's just that, to me, that's boring. I think that there's something else going on. Can a lot of these things be true at once? Absolutely. This is the other problem with just observing something one way, is it's not the right or wrong way. It's all true at the same time. And we have a really hard time holding the tension of all of that. We have to pick a side. We have to say this or that. She's just a narcissist and that's all this is. Really though, is it? Is it really true? Is that the only truth there is there? The heroine's journey, the reclamation of herself, and her ability to save herself from what? The heroine's initiation behind the veil, in my observation, over many years of doing this work, and also observing my own life experiences, is, it seems, connected to the breaking of the heart, to the betrayal of the heart and the trust, and of really being vulnerable and open and naked with somebody or some people or a group of people or whatever, as above, so below, so much that we didn't maybe see what was coming, right? Because of all the trust that we had already entrusted into these people, this group of people, or this person, and so on, a lover, a friend, whomever. And that trust is betrayed, and that forces us into this existential crisis, right? Where we are now floating in the ethers, and we don't know where north is anymore. We thought we did, and now we're like, oh shit, I never knew where it was. And now I still don't know where it is. So I'm floating. I don't even have the ground beneath my feet. Oh my God, it's a death. It's kind of a death anxiety when we are losing our innocence. That's what it is connected to, is a sort of death anxiety. So now what? What do I do now? Yeah, that's the interesting part. Now it's all possible, because now everything is back to its, as much as possible, like a raw essence of itself, where you now have raw material to work with. It's not ready-made material, where we have been gathering information from the second and third and fourth and fifth hand for so long, and all of a sudden we think that that's our information, but is it? Is it? And so then we're forced to get back to the basics, go back to the raw materials. Wait a minute, where was I? How did I wind up here? What did I say yes to that I shouldn't have said yes to, and my body told me not to say yes to, but I did anyway? You know what I'm talking about? I have a feeling that you do. So this story with J-Lo, I mentioned it in the post on Instagram here, that, I think that she had a little bit of a spiritual bypassing experience. And it was she was just so excited, I think, about the reunion with Ben Affleck, that's kind of interesting. Think about that. If you had a love of your life a long time ago, and all of a sudden you wind up with him again 20 years later, that's an interesting story, right? And it was real for her. It's actually not a movie, but that was real for her. But because she is J-Lo, and she is a creative force, and she's got this narcissism, and it's kind of a whole mixed bag of these truths, she had to express it this way. And I can understand that desire to make something, to create something, to express something that's so difficult to express and explain and articulate, that the only way you can do it is through art. And even that feels like you can't put your finger on it. Nobody's going to feel the way you feel when you have your own epiphany and your own reawakening or awakening to something, right? Nobody can feel it. It's meant for you. But you want to express it. And I think that's part of what happened to her, was she was expressing this heroine's journey. The descent of Inanna, and then the rise of the phoenix from that deep, dark night and that primordial space. And she's becoming her own hero, her own heroine, who was born again out of a broken heart. We, have no real literacy around that. We, as a culture, our literacy is very centered in masculine frameworks, including linearism, language, surface value things, material things that, low-hanging fruit. Just to be very honest with you, it's very low-hanging fruit to just leave it at, oh, she's a narcissist. Well, okay. Wow, that is so profound. Okay. This is what we have. We have a lot of people picking low-hanging fruit and then sharing it, saying, oh my God, this is brilliant. And it's just so basic. Oh, it's very basic, just to be honest with you. It's like rotten fruit. Eat this rotten fruit. That's why it's so sweet. It's almost rotten. You know what I mean? So it doesn't take much to do that. I just would like to talk about this, or I wanted to talk about it, because I just think it's really necessary that this esoteric stuff that we're talking about all over social media, this trending witchcraft and trending occultism, and which has found a renaissance, needs to, I think, come along with a looking again at the literacy of the esoteric world, which is really deeply symbolic, and hopefully that we learn to not just use language, but learn how to detect symbolism in these recurring themes of humanity, and how we are all, no matter what time we're living in, experiencing the same thing. You know, like you know, that saying goes, there's nothing new under the sun. And just because we are in 2024 doesn't mean that, you know, we are discovering something that ancient societies and tribal people haven't already discovered and didn't already discover a long time ago. You know, we need a little humbling now. These patterns have been around for a very long time, way before us, and they will exist long after we are gone. And I like to look into stories, look into what is happening around us that way. You know what I mean? I like to look again and then look again. And all of a sudden you will see this deeper pattern hiding in plain sight, a mythology that doesn't go away, that is part of our human experience. And that is how I observed this documentary, because it's not about personality, right? It's about the mythology and the story being told that's connected to all of us. Thanks for listening to my rant about J-Lo and her documentary. But anyway, I really like talking about these things. Let me know if there's something else that you've noticed in pop culture or in politics, left and right. This is a Politically Homeless Instagram account, and I do that on purpose because I like to examine all sides, to look for this mythos in all these spaces, because I think it's really necessary at this point. If we are going to look into the nuance of all things, we have to be able to look into the nuance of all things. All right. Thanks. Talk to you later.